Good morning, Internet. Zim here, and today we're going to talk about the game of Pathfinder I ran last night. And for those of you who don't know, Pathfinder is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a fantasy role-play game. So there are some differences, but they're immaterial for this conversation. So what it was I had some notes from a previous time I was going to run that fell apart. And some guys from work really wanted to get a game going. So I just took those notes, bashed them out into a, workable scenario that I can start for a campaign. And the whole theme behind it was I've watched Spoonie do his Counter Monkeys, and one of his whole videos was never get on the boat, which, you know, you have to, as a GM, find clever ways to make them get on the boat. So I set it in Archipelago. Yeah, they were started on a prison ship being transported to an archipelago. Fuck your family, fuck your friends, fuck your homelands. None of that shit matters. You are a stranger in a strange land. Which is why I didn't let them be certain races or classes. I'm the one who's making you feel like the stranger. So, yeah. First thing that happened to them, prologue, prison fight. Just no reason whatsoever. Couple of guys didn't like the way a couple of the players looked. So one night they got dumped out of their bunks and a brawl started. It was just two guys on two guys at first, and it was a human and a half-orc as the NPCs. My players were a human and a halfling. And here's to the credit of one of my players. This was his first time playing a game. He made a perception check to make sense of what was going on because it was after lights out. Everyone was supposed to be in bed going to sleep. He made a good perception check and identified correctly who was attacking who. So he went out to help. He was a monk. Everyone was unarmed. No one else was a monk. Guess who dealt the most damage? So that brawl just kind of just boom. Welcome to the game. And Mario, who was playing the halfling, halfling's name is Flint. Flint Fizzbang. I kept calling him Whizbang just to piss Mario off. Flint kept whiffing, but it didn't really matter because Aaron with Raja the monk was there. Nathan with Medley was actually doing really good handling a half-orc in unarmed combat by himself. So, props to him and props to Aaron. Mario, you gotta work on your shit. Maybe get some different dice, because I don't know if you rolled above a 13 all night. Oh yeah, and Kara had Malin the Druid, and she didn't make a perception check. She couldn't tell who was at fault, so she, along with all the other prisoners in that hold, just kind of stood back and watched. She didn't get any of the experience for the fight because she didn't participate. No biggie. So that was just the prologue. This was just to kind of get everyone used to the idea that they didn't have any gear. They had no weapons other than what they could find. And if they had made some checks, they might have been able to find something to, use as an improvised weapon. Excuse me. Use as an improvised weapon, which you take a penalty when using, but no one else has any armor class either. So, I mean, there's no real reason not to use whatever you have to your advantage, especially since anything is almost better than 1d3 of damage, which, unless you're a monk, that's what you do. And that d3 is non-lethal damage. Only the monk can do lethal damage. And, again, to Aaron's credit, he deliberately said, I'm dealing non-lethal damage in this brawl because I don't want to kill the prisoners. That might cause too much trouble for us. Great reasoning, good roleplay. So the next morning, they're out above decks, amidships, and they're having their head count and formation, and they get the news that they have arrived in the archipelago, and some of the prisoners are being released. It's the party. It's the reason to get the party off of the boat onto the island and start their real adventure. So, I do the roll call the players up and separate them. They're standing next to the rail. All of their effects have been gathered up. All of the gear that they had labeled on their character sheets bundled up into one big package. And I told them, okay, naval regulations state that prisoners, even those about to be freed, are not allowed arms or armor. So the solution to this is your gear is going to be delivered to shore first, where you can collect it at your leisure. So this big bundle of all of their stuff gets loaded into the cup of a catapult and launched ashore. They made a perception check to see if they could see where it landed. It went deep into the jungle, but it left a trail. And then they said, okay, well, we have to give you a launch, a small boat. And regulations state that a launch must be made of wood, have rope and canvas for a sail, and an anchor. They gave them 2 barrel staves, some rope, some moldy canvas, and a boat anchor. I deliberately gave the boat anchor to the guy with the highest strength modifier, the monk, and shoved him off the rails. So now the ship keeps going, and they're in open water about 100 feet from shore. They make their swim checks, and to his credit, the initial swim check, just to see if they immediately pop back up above water, Aaron, with Raja the monk, made his first roll. Holding on to that boat anchor gave him a plus 15 to the DC of the swim check. Now, it's calm water, so the DC was 10. So even if they were untrained, which someone was, they shouldn't have had too much trouble swimming in calm water. Unfortunately, the next round, Aaron rolls a 1. So Raja the monk treads water for 6 seconds and then plummets to the seafloor. He is now standing on the seafloor. He does not drop the anchor. He starts walking to shore. Oh, God. So Aaron is walking to shore, or Raja is walking to shore, and Medley, the ranger, starts swimming. he has some difficulty. Everyone has some difficulty swimming. I mean, they just have bad rolls. Well, once Medley got himself under control and started swimming, he noticed that Raja was underwater. So he deliberately dives down, swims to him, and starts signing to him, "Hey, do you need help?" And Raja just kind of says, "Nah, I'm good." And I have Raja make a perception check because he's walking underwater, and he finds a sea chest. So Raja and Medley work together to not only get to shore, but they knock a rock off of the sea chest that was keeping it down there, and they pick up the sea chest and carry it to shore. Both of them walk to shore carrying a sea chest and a boat anchor. Meanwhile, Kara with Malin, the druid, and Mario with Flint, the halfling summoner, are struggling because Malin is trying to help Flint. Malin is some kind of water elf, so she can take 10 on swim checks, which means she would automatically pass them. So in order to help Mario, well, to help Flint, Malin makes rolls to make sure that she can assist Flint on his swim checks. And to his credit, he does start rolling 8. With the +2 circumstance bonus of being helped by another player character, this means he was passing. Of course, a couple of rounds later, he starts foundering again, and he says, "Wait, I've got those barrel staves. Isn't wood buoyant?" I'm like, "Yeah. I mean, if you use it properly, you could use it to give yourself a bonus to your swim checks." He says, "I'm going to do that." 2. +2 circumstance of being helped by another character, +2 for using the barrel staves to propel him along, gets him a 6. Nope. Oh boy. So they try this for another couple of rounds. Eventually, Kara just starts making swim checks, grabs Flint, and just swims to shore, dragging a flailing halfling. Mario, your dice betrayed you that night. So now they're on shore, they want to open the chest. They don't have any tools to pick a lock. And while Medley tries to pick the lock with like makeshift stuff, there's nothing really around. They're on a beach. There's driftwood and seaweed washed ashore. There's nothing. He rolled middling on his perception check to find stuff, but there wasn't anything really, so there wasn't anything to find. So Aaron says, "Well, Raja has the boat anchor. I'm going to use the boat anchor to try and smash the chest." Okay. So he makes his attack roll, which, to attack a given square is a DC of, or a armor class of 5, because it's a fairly small chest. It had like a +2. He hits. He rolls damage. The chest explodes. And out of the wreckage of the chest, they find 3 vials of ointment of Cure Light Wounds. They're going to need it because they have no armor, they have improvised weapons, and they don't have any gear. Their one healer is a 2nd level druid. So now they gotta go find their stuff. They find the trail where the package crash through the canopy of the jungle. And they start following that track, and they find where it landed. They don't find the gear. They find goblin tracks. The goblin tracks go off in a general, that-away direction. I'm not using the map at this point, so it doesn't matter what direction I point. And they have to go follow it. And I knew they were going to need some weapons, so as a mercy, along the way they find some dead goblins, and the goblins have small-sized weapons, which are inappropriately sized for most of the party. The one member of the party who is small-sized, Flint, isn't proficient with martial weapons, which is what the goblins were carrying. They were carrying dog slicers, blowguns, just kind of shitty, simple, but martial weapons. Like, okay, simple weapons is a different category, but there are martial weapons of a simplistic design. So, among them, there's just a bunch of dead goblins, but among them, I let them find, sized for a medium creature, a Turbuchi, also called a Maquahital Club. And if you don't know what that is, imagine an oar for a boat, but the handle is shortened down to like the handle of a sword, and the blade of the oar is extended about the length of a sword. Around the edge of the paddle are jammed sharpened pieces of rock, obsidian, flint, glass, shark's teeth, just anything of that sort that is sharper than wood. It's an incredibly vicious looking weapon. And it's a decent weapon. It's not an improvised weapon, so they don't take a penalty for using it. But it has the fragile condition, which means as they use it, if they critically fail, it breaks. If they keep using it while it's broken, and they critically fail again, it's destroyed and falls apart in their hands. So they now have a decent weapon, which the rogue is now carrying. They have some improvised weapons, which for the halfling, a barrel stave is a quarterstaff, improvised of course, and the monk is carrying a boat anchor. Honestly, his fists are more deadly than the boat anchor because he's not taking a penalty for those. Plus, I mean, he can do flurry of blows, which not only is he not taking a penalty, but he can do it twice. So 1d8 for an improvised heavy mace, which is what the boat anchor counts as, or 2d6 to punch and kick people. I mean, 2d6 is better than 1d8. On the other hand, it's handy to have an improvised weapon. So if they need it, if they need to break open a chest again, or if they just need... There are other uses, and I'm going to let the party decide what those other uses for this boat anchor, as well as the rope, the canvas, and the barrel staves. If they hold on to those and find clever uses for those, I will reward those. Because it's roleplay. I want to encourage my players not just to roll the dice, but also to play roles and get in character. And, speaking of, Aaron. Yeah, Aaron. Aaron is probably one of the funniest role players I've seen in a long time. And it was his first time role-playing, so he had time to think about this, but he also had some pretty goofy moments. Like when he didn't drop the boat anchor. Anyone else in the party would have dropped the boat anchor to swim, walking along the seafloor, holding his breath. And to be fair, the rules for holding your breath are in the book, they weren't far enough away from shore to really be in any danger of drowning. It's just that if you like breathing, you can swim above water. But that monk is a tough bastard, and he has his own way of thinking. So, let's see. What else? What else did he do? Oh, yeah, just the way he did this. We spent a lot of time laughing at just the way things were happening. Oh, yes, I remember the other thing he did. As they were following the goblins' goat trails, uh, they went just far enough off the trail to attract the attentions of a boar. It's agitated because the goblins are stomping about, mucking about with it. Might have maybe attacked it before, maybe attacked other boars that it saw. So it was agitated. And while Kara and her druid were making wild empathy checks, they weren't quite good enough because, the DC is harder the more agitated it is, and it was agitated. So they had to kill the boar. But while they were fighting the boar with their improvised weapons and still no armor, Raja decides he's going to taunt the boar. I mean, Flint had summoned his Eidolon, and his Eidolon was fighting the boar. The rogue was fighting the boar. The monk was not yet to the boar because he didn't have like a straight line to charge it. So he got into a straight line of sight and made an intimidate check to draw aggro. Natural 20. The boar immediately ignores both Flint's Eidolon and Medley the Rogue, bull rushes through them and charges Raja the monk. So the Eidolon goes this way, the Rogue goes this way, the boar goes this way, straight into the monk's nuts. He takes a shitload of damage. I mean, that boar rolled really well. Plus, boars are really strong and have high constitution. So he had plenty of bonuses to everything. So, he taunted a boar. I mean, if that wasn't like, I don't remember if it was a natural 20 or if it was a modified 20, but it was a really good roll. So he drew aggro. He pissed off the pig. And he started punching it. Like, he dropped the anchor, flurry of blows. And the pig goes down. Like, okay, boars have ferocity, and this was one of my experiments in, traits like this that animals have. Ferocity, when the hit points go below 0, they keep fighting, but they're staggered, so they take penalties to hit, to saves, to everything. And they don't actually die until they hit their negative constitution modifier. Well, they knock it down. They kill the boar, and we left off with them using the. Okay, they started a campfire to cook it because they didn't have rations. They needed food, and the trail will keep. They can pick up the trail later. They made food, and for once, Flint was useful because he had profession cooking. So he knew how to cook the meat in order to give them because they hadn't eaten breakfast. They were thrown off before breakfast. They had no trail rations, and they had just killed a boar that had no disease. Like, it wasn't diseased, it wasn't cursed, it wasn't anything like that. So it was safe to eat. It's good thinking of them. But while they were building the cooking fire, Raja says, "Well, we need to cut up the pig. I'm going to try cutting it up with the boat anchor." Excuse me? He just starts swinging the boat anchor at the carcass of the pig, while the rogue is looking at him going, "Makwahidal, dude." So you chop it up with the Makwahidal club, and they cook that, and I roll to see how many units of trail rations they get. I probably should have given them more, but, I mean, they ate some, you know, some of it might not have been good meat or easy to prepare right away. So they got enough for a few days of pork jerky trail rations. Their bowels may not be happy, but I mean, they can find some vegetation or something to make it stretch out. Make a survival check for roots and tubers. Get yourself some roughage. Raja and the boat anchor. I kind of want him to keep it throughout this whole campaign and make it kind of his thing. I mean, yes, drop it to do your monk stuff, but, like, carry that shit with you. We'll find ways to use it. It's a 25-pound boat anchor. And I mean, if you want to, like, shape it into an actual weapon, fine, great, we can do that. But I kind of want the boat anchor to become the emblem of Raja the monk. Anyway, that was the story of the first Pathfinder campaign I've run in some time. This isn't my first rodeo, but it's the first rodeo I've been in I think over a year, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. So, my players who watch this, good job. We'll pick this up soon, hopefully, and we'll see what you guys are able to do next time. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Zim out.